Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Lawrence Welk Show, celebrating more than 50 years on television.
Good evening. In the news tonight, Washington, Indiana is calling for volunteers to help with a massive cleanup from Sunday's storms. And the jury that will decide if Zacarias Moussaoui dies for his role in 9/11 has been hearing Rudy Giuliani's account of the events that day.
In sports, the Masters is underway, and Philadelphia Eagles fans have October 8th circled on their calendar.
Newscenter 22 is next. Washington Mayor Dave Abel today declared this Saturday as Neighbors Helping Neighbors Day. Sunday's severe storm caused extensive damage in Washington and elsewhere in Daviess County. Abel says a lot of storm debris remains to be picked up, and the city has put out a call for volunteers to help clean up private property where assistance has been requested. Volunteers are asked to go to the West End Fire Station at 1010 West Walnut Street on Saturday to be assigned to a work area. Work will continue throughout the day from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. As of this morning, Mayor Abel says power has been restored to 98% of households in Washington and Montgomery. Numerous power lines were knocked down during the storm. Abel says some customers who remain without power must hire electricians to replace broken meters and conduits extending from the meter bases on their homes and buildings before Washington's electric department can reconnect power. A new federal study says Indiana children died from abuse and neglect at a rate that was more than twice the national average. The study of fatalities during the 2004 federal fiscal year showed that 77 children died between October 1, 2003 and September 30, 2004. The state's rate of 4.81 deaths per 100,000 children was the highest of the 43 states and the District of Columbia that were included in the survey. It was also more than double the national rate of 2.03. The survey covered a time when the state's Family and Social Services Administration was under fire for not adequately protecting Indiana's children. Experts say inconsistencies in the way states compile statistics make any state-by-state comparison difficult. A Sanborn man asked the Greene County Commissioners this week to annex his hometown located in northeast Knox County. 320 people live in Sanborn, which is located less than a mile from the Greene-Knox County line. Steve Mitchell says the town's residents largely shop in Greene County and that its police protection and the courthouse in Bloomfield are closer than Knox County's and Vincennes. But he also says some residents are frustrated by the successful request by Knox County officials to move into the Central Time Zone. The president of the Greene County Commissioners, Bart Beard, says he's skeptical about the annexation proposal. AT&T Indiana says it's expanding high-speed internet service to 33 more rural communities in Indiana, including Bruceville, Knox County, as a result of a new state law. The law frees much of the telecommunications industry from state regulations. AT&T, formerly SBC, says that over the next year it will bring DSL internet service to every central office it operates in the state. Any AT&T customer within about 2.5 miles of a central office will be able to get the service, although the areas could expand in the future. A citizens group is asking state regulators to reopen the review of Duke Energy Corporation's $9 billion acquisition of Synergy Corporation. The Citizens Action Coalition says other states, including North Carolina, received a larger community benefit from a deal, and Indiana should ask Duke for more rate cuts. The Indiana Department of Transportation says the ramp from northbound US 41 to Willow Street in Vincennes will be reopened to traffic on Saturday, weather permitting. Meanwhile, NDOT is getting ready to close another ramp for repaving. That ramp runs from Willow Street to US 41 northbound. That ramp will close Wednesday for about 1 week. Once the work has been completed at the Willow Street interchange, crews will move north to the Hart Street interchange. Closures on the Hart Street ramps will begin in mid-May. Opponents of the state's plan to lease the Indiana Toll Road to a private foreign consortium have fewer than 10 days to legally challenge the validity of the pending deal. Steve Bonney, a West Lafayette farmer and activist, says that at least one citizen group plans to file a lawsuit challenging the arrangement on state constitutional grounds. Under a law authorizing the deal, a 15-day window for challenging the toll lease started March 29th and closes April 13th. Skipping class could be expensive for students under a plan being considered by Illinois lawmakers. The legislation would give Illinois counties and cities the authority to fine students who frequently skip class. Chronic truants who are 10 or older could be fined up to $100, ordered to perform community service, or both. If the pupil is younger than 10, their parents could face those penalties. Supporters say the goal is to get kids back to school. State officials have extended the quarantine on the movement of any ash trees or ash wood to parts of Marion County. That's because the emerald ash borer, blamed for killing millions of the trees in the Midwest, was found on the north side of Indianapolis. Still to come on Newscenter 22, former New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani took the stand today for the support of the government's demand for the death penalty for Zacarias Moussaoui. And Citizens Against Government Waste says Congress spent a record $29 billion on nearly 10,000 pork barrel projects in fiscal 2006. Stay with us.
Hello, 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 hello.
A retired firefighter says he saw one of his colleagues killed by a falling body from the World Trade Center on 9/11. Another man showed a photo of his police officer wife helping an injured man out of the World Trade Center before she was killed. They testified today in the death penalty case of Zacarias Moussaoui. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani also testified today. He told jurors he was on the phone at a command center near the Trade Center waiting to be connected to Vice President Cheney when the tower fell. Giuliani says it was like a storm scene in The Wizard of Oz, with debris flowing through the street in a white cloud. The jury also saw videos of victims falling to their deaths. The Saddam Hussein trial could wrap up this summer. A U.S. official close to the Iraqi court says the judges could deliver a verdict and sentence in June or July. Today brought a debrief court session in Baghdad. A former judge who sentenced 148 Shiites to death under Saddam Hussein's rule in the 1980s told prosecutors the suspects had confessed. He says the trial lasted 16 days in a legal and just court. But the judge admitted the defendants had just one lawyer who was appointed by his revolutionary court. The judge is one of Saddam's co-defendants. Prosecutors are moving toward wrapping up their case. Defense lawyers today presented a series of handwritten documents, say they were confessions by some of the Shiites. Court is adjourned until next Wednesday. There's been another deadly car bombing in Iraq, this time in the city of Najaf, near one of the most sacred Shiite Muslim shrines in the world. Iraqi police now say at least 10 people were killed and about 30 wounded. The bombing hit some 300 yards from the Imam Ali shrine, which holds the tomb of the Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law. Such attacks are rare in Najaf, which is tightly controlled by police and Shiite security guards. The attack presents a grave provocation because of Najaf's global stature as a sacred city. The U.S. says Iraqi forces have captured the prime suspect in last year's kidnapping of an Italian journalist. He's reputed to be the leader of a group called the Secret Islamic Army and is said to have close ties to the fugitive terrorist who heads al-Qaeda in Iraq. The U.S. Air Force has released incredible video images shot recently by a remote control operated Predator spy plane. The video reportedly shows 3 people digging a hole for what is believed to be a roadside bomb. It was taken just over a week ago in Balad, Iraq, near a military base. Air Force operators believe they were planting an IED and laying wire for detonation. The operators launched a Hellfire missile, resulting in a huge explosion and black smoke. 3 suspected insurgents were killed. President Bush says he's glad lawmakers are near a deal on immigration legislation, and he's pushing them to work hard and get the bill done. Senate Republicans and Democrats say they've made a huge breakthrough and are closing in on an 11th-hour compromise on immigration. The efforts could pave the way to giving illegal immigrants legal status and eventual citizenship. It'd be the Senate's most sweeping immigration bill in 2 decades. Senators John McCain and Ted Kennedy sponsored the bill.
Those people that are out there today, the 11 million, we're sending a message, and that is you're going to be welcome, and you won't have to live in the fear in the future.
The bill would also enhance border security and regulate the future flow of immigrants into the nation. The compromise would have different requirements based on how long illegal immigrants have been in the country, including no guarantee that those here fewer than 2 years would be able to return. Some senators don't like the compromise, saying it doesn't deal harshly enough with immigrants who break the law by entering the nation illegally. President Bush says he will absolutely not apologize for telling government agents to listen in on American suspect phone and email conversations. When questioned today in North Carolina by a man who said Bush should be ashamed of his policies, the president defended the warrantless surveillance as necessary to protect against al-Qaeda terrorists. Following a speech in Charlotte, the president was also asked what he would have done differently in the Iraq War. He talked about using different tactics for Iraqi security training and reconstruction, and he expressed strong regret about the abuse of inmates at Abu Ghraib prison. The president says Abu Ghraib was a disgraceful experience and an opportunity for enemy propaganda that he wishes could be done over. The man accused of leaking a name of the CIA agent says President Bush himself authorized the leak to sensitive intelligence information about Iraq. That's according to court papers filed by prosecutors in the Louis Libby case. But there's no indication that either Bush or Vice President Cheney authorized Libby to disclose the agent's identity. Democrats say President Bush has some explaining to do. Senator Chuck Schumer says at the very least, Bush and Vice President Cheney need to own up to their actions. A dozen years ago, the political tide turned on Capitol Hill, sweeping Democrats out of office as Republicans came surging in. Will we witness something similar this year in reverse? Bill Schneider reports.
Many experts believe midterm elections are a referendum on the president, even though he's not on the ballot.
The midterms are likely to be much more a referendum on George W. Bush, the war in Iraq, other news, not on delay.
President Bush's latest job approval rating is 36%, 10 points lower than President Clinton's in November 1994 when the Republican tidal wave hit. Is there a Democratic tidal wave coming? Unlikely, Republicans say. Why? For one thing, there are fewer vulnerable incumbents these days. House Republicans have built levees by using the reapportionment process to create safe districts and protect themselves from a tidal wave. Back in 1994, Republicans needed to gain 40 seats to take over the House. This year, Democrats need to pick up only 15 seats. They don't need as big a tidal wave. In 1994, Republicans promoted their contract with America as a positive alternative. They still claim that advantage.
Our party will continue to succeed because we're the party of ideas.
What positive alternative have the Democrats got? Last week, they ceremoniously unveiled their real security plan to protect America. Missed it? Well, guess what? Most voters in 1994 had never even heard of the contract with America.
The Republicans in '94 made that into the myth that it became.
What drove the 1994 tidal wave was anger at President Clinton. It was the year of the angry white men. And this year?
Well, there's plenty of anger out there.
The question is whether that anger can be sustained for the next 7 months.
They say you can't beat something with nothing. They're wrong. If people are angry enough at something, they'll vote for something different. even if they're not entirely sure what it is. Bill Schneider, CNN, Washington.
A Georgia congresswoman says, "I apologize." Democrat Cynthia McKinney is expressing sincere regret for what she calls a misunderstanding. A grand jury is considering whether McKinney should be charged for hitting a Capitol police officer after she was stopped for passing a security checkpoint. The World Toilet Summit, a teapot museum, and berry research. Those are just some of the questionable projects contained in the so-called Pig Book, a scathing look at congressional pork barrel spending. Brian Todd has more.
If you pass through the tiny town of Sparta, North Carolina in a couple of years, please make a point to visit the local Teapot Museum. You might see anything from a skyline teapot to something that doesn't look like it holds tea. We're asking you to stop by so Congress can get its money's worth. That's $500,000 of your tax money doled out for the Sparta Teapot Museum. The president of the group Citizens Against Government Waste calls this the most ridiculous project among hundreds cited in this year's Congressional Pig Book on wasteful pork barrel spending.
If you want to wander 77 miles from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, you might be able to visit the museum in the middle of nowhere.
A spokesman for the Teapot Museum says there's a market for this attraction and says it will revitalize the local economy. The more urbane Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington gets $550,000 of your money this year, and the report singles out the appropriators who represent that district, Senator Patty Murray and Congressman Norman Dix. An aide to Senator Murray says she decides what to ask for based on her constituents' priorities. Dix's office didn't return our calls. How does more than $2 million for the International Fertilizer Development Center strike your wallet? Or $1 million for urinals that don't use water?
Obviously, that project received the Flushing Our Money Down the Drain Award.
We caught up with Congressman Vernon Ehlers of Michigan, who got that money for waterless urinals. He says this method of flushing waste is anything but wasteful.
They're just cheaper. They cost less to maintain. They save 45,000 gallons of water a year. It's just a wonderful idea.
A special citation, this year called the Cold Shoulder Award, goes to Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. For the 7th straight year, he wins for the most pork allocations per capita, $325 million worth in Alaska this year. I stopped by Senator Stevens' office and I called him back later. He would not comment. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
The European Union says it can now count 13 EU countries that have reported a deadly strain of bird flu in wild birds. British officials have confirmed that a dead swan found in Scotland had the deadly H5N1 strain. 2 other dead birds found in Glasgow are being tested. Still to come on Newscenter 22, Amy Reef has this evening's weather. Tune in to WVUT this Thursday night. At 7, watch Africa Live, the Rollback Malaria Concert. Concert performances raise awareness of the malaria crisis. Various African artists lend their talents to the cause. Then at 8, Malaria Fever Wars examines the impact of malaria in Africa and the 2003 outbreak of the disease in Florida. Take a worldview Thursday night with PBS and WVUT. Well, Amy, I had to find my umbrella this morning. How long should I keep it near me?
Oh, I'm right in there with you. But as we all know, along with spring comes rain, and we're in for some more of it. Good evening, everyone. As we take a look outside to the tower cam, currently rain and 54 degrees. Wind is out of the east at 14 miles per hour. Humidity is at 91%, and the barometric pressure is at 29.75 and rising. Now let's take a look at some area temperatures. Rainy all around. Evansville, Indiana, 61. Washington at 55, and over in Illinois, Lawrenceville is at 53, and Robinson is at 55. Now let's take a look at our national temperature map. Cooler temperatures out west toward the Rockies, where they're actually experiencing some winter-like weather. Aspen currently at 43 degrees. Quite a different story down south as things are continuing to heat up. Houston, Texas is at 83 degrees. And out on the East Coast, temperatures are averaging in the 50s and the 60s. We currently have Dover, Delaware at 54. Now let's take a look at our surface map. This afternoon marks the start of a multi-day severe weather outbreak throughout a majority of the United States. Now, as you can see, the north as well as the southeast temporarily unaffected by the system. However, they're going to start to feel the effects later on as it continues to push its way east throughout the evening. In the Midwest, strong to severe thunderstorms continue pushing through Missouri into southern Indiana, capable of damaging winds, large hail, and possibly even some isolated tornadoes. So that's going to make for very, very dangerous driving conditions. So if at all possible, might be a good night just to stay in and relax. System also extends as far south into Texas and as far east into Idaho and down even into the Rockies, where they're actually mixing in a little bit of the white stuff. Yes, a little bit of snow with the rain. And this, along with this cold front, going to continue pushing their way east as the evening progresses. Now let's take a look at your forecast. Tonight, thunderstorms with a low of 59. Tomorrow, thunderstorms with a high of 76. And tomorrow night, thunderstorms with a low of 38. Now for a look at your extended forecast. Saturday, mostly sunny with a high of 52 and a low of 32. Sunday, sunny with a high of 59 and a low of 37. And Monday with a high of 66 and a low of 46. And Kurt, that's a look at your weather.
Thanks, Amy. Still to come on Newscenter 22, Kristen Miller will have the latest from the Masters tournament, and the NFL has announced the 2006 schedule.
It's been 7 months since Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. And from the Garden District to Gulfport, people are still trying to salvage their homes, businesses, and lives. For a close-up look at the progress being made and the obstacles that stand in the way of rebuilding this unique region, the Gulf Coast, Road to Renewal.
And they're off. Good evening, everyone. For TV 22 Sports, I'm Kristen Miller. Vijay Singh has assumed the clubhouse lead with a 5-under par 67 in the first round of the Masters. That's one better than Marco Mediate, who carded a 4-under par 68 on his first competitive trip around an Augusta National course that's once again been tweaked in an attempt to keep scores from going too low. Defending champ Tiger Woods matched par with a 72. A 26-year-old man has been jailed after allegedly shooting at Tom Lehman's car on the Bobby Jones Expressway. Lehman wasn't hurt and will play in the Masters. Troy Willis Smith of Augusta is being held on 2 felony counts, each of aggravated assault and possession of a firearm and commission of a crime, according to the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. No court date has been set. Sheriff's Office investigator Tom Johnson says Lehman was on his way to the Augusta airport late last night to pick up his son. Lehman told police an older model 4-door sport utility vehicle sped past his vehicle and he heard a loud explosion. Michael Andretti is the most recognizable name in a late flurry of entries into the Indianapolis 500. The co-owner of Andretti Green Racing said earlier he would drive in his son Marco's rookie race at Indy, but he wasn't entered until his list of 10 cars arrived only hours before Wednesday night's entry deadline. The race has 59 cars and 24 drivers as of today, although the Speedway expected others postmarked before the deadline to arrive by mail through next week. Peja Stojakovic and Steven Jackson scored 25 points each, and Indiana held on to beat Toronto 111-103 last night in NBA action. Jermaine O'Neal scored 18 points and Anthony Johnson added 16 as the Pacers snapped a 5-game losing streak. They held the 7th spot in the Eastern Conference playoff race and closed to within a half a game of 6th place Milwaukee, which lost to Orlando. Chicago has moved a game and a half ahead of Philadelphia for the 8th and final Eastern Conference playoff berth by downing the 76ers 99-92. Andres Nocioni scored 21 points and grabbed 13 rebounds as the Bulls won their 4th in a row while handing the 76ers their 12th loss in 16 games. Ben Gordon also finished with 21 points despite twisting an ankle just before halftime. The Sacramento Kings improved their chances of reaching the NBA playoffs Wednesday while cutting into San Antonio's lead in the Western Conference standings. The Spurs' lead in the West is down to 2 games over Dallas after Micah Bibby tallied 31 points and dished out 8 assists in the Kings' 97-87 victory in San Antonio. Sacramento is 2 games ahead of New Orleans for the 8th and final Western Conference playoff berth. There's no way for second-place Miami to overtake Detroit in the NBA's Eastern Conference standings, but the Heat could plant a seed in doubt of the conference leader's psyche with a win tonight. The visiting Pistons ride a 5-game win streak into South Florida. In other NBA news, Phoenix Suns star Otto Stoudemire has undergone season-ending surgery on his right knee. He was able to play just 3 games after missing the first 66 of the season. At the ballparks Wednesday, Jimmy Rollins has continued his hitting streak while the Philadelphia Eagles continue to lose. Rollins ran the streak to 38 games by going 2 for 4 with a pair of doubles in the Phillies' 4-3 loss to St. Louis. Albert Pujols and Skip Shoemaker homered for the Cardinals, who blew a 3-1 lead before Yadier Molina hit the tie-breaking single with 2 outs in the 9th.
Out to deep right field.
Ken Griffey Jr. homered to help Cincinnati beat the visiting Chicago Cubs 8-6 yesterday. It was the veteran outfielder's 537th career homer, moving him past Mickey Mantle into sole possession of the 12th place on the career list. Pitcher Bronson Arroyo, who went 7 2/3 innings in his first start since the Reds acquired him from the Boston Red Sox on March 20th, homered off losing pitcher Lyndon Rush in his first at-bat in the 3rd inning. Philadelphia Eagles fans will get their chance to boo Terrell Owens a month into the 2006 NFL season. The entire NFL schedule was released today, and it has the Eagles, who suspended and then benched the volatile wide receiver last season, hosting Dallas on October 8th. The Cowboys signed Owens last month. Several games had already been announced, including the opener on Thursday night, September 7th, featuring Miami at Pittsburgh. The Vincennes University men's tennis team is ranked 7th in the latest NJCAA spring poll. The Blazers currently have 2 players ranked near the top in singles. Freshman Marius Tangent is 6th, while freshman Renato Costa is 13th. Tangent is 7-1 this season, while Costa has a 6-2 record, all against opponents from 4-year schools. The Blazers travel to Hillsboro, Missouri this weekend to compete in the Jefferson College Quad Tournament. And Kurt, that's a look at sports.
Thanks, Kristen. Still to come on Newscenter 22, NBC today announced the successor to Katie Couric on the Today Show. Stay with us.
We are global citizens now. The borders don't protect anybody. We're all in this together.
Right now, a child is dying every 30 seconds from malaria, and it is getting worse.
Malaria has been eradicated in the United States and is back now.
Yeah, here they come. Oh, my God.
How mosquitoes manage to cause as much catastrophe and death in this world today is just truly amazing.
To paraphrase Albert Brooks in broadcast news, how about that? She buried the lead. On a day she'd make one of the biggest announcements of her career, Meredith Vieira led the Hot Topics part of The View, with Katie Couric leaving the Today Show. It wasn't until after a commercial break that Vieira confirmed she is Couric's replacement. She says she believes in growth, but at the moment she's feeling terrific growing pains. Vieira is expected to join Matt Lauer in September. Lauer says he can't wait. And that's all for now. Join us again tomorrow. For Amy Reef and Kristen Miller, I'm Kurt Maddox. Good night.